Yep, so this is my game. I have one default game file. A lot of times I just name it Z because it's the A button for my game, so it's just an easy default. This is a small example of the menu system that I designed where it will highlight over whatever you're um, trying to or could select, whatever you're hovering. You don't need the mouse. You could just do it with keyboard and it makes a little sound. Um, and then you can, of course, delete your files. I got an options menu. I didn't originally come up with this, but this is like a heavily modified example that I used for keyboard management and gamepad management. And so you can like set your custom controls, like, oh, what if I want left to be, I don't know, A or something like that. I did make it so that you can't double up on controls. That just gives me as a programmer less headache to like try to like say, oh no, what if they were pressing these two commands? Because that's kind of how you think of it with this system, is like this is a command, regardless like of it being this or this. The game will be like, oh, interact was triggered, so I need to do this. So I did make them unique. So like I can't set this to Z. It'll say each input has to be unique. That's a little warning thing I made. Um, if I exit out, it'll revert to its default. Um, if I say undefine, it can do. I made this like rapid mapping system, so it will go like boom, boom, boom. You can like pretty much just sequentially put whatever the hell you want as long as it's unique. Oops. Um, but I'm gonna set this back to default. I made these little sliders, so like this, I made some game music. It's nothing amazing, but and then sound effects volume. So like, let's say you're playing with the controller or gamepad or keyboard, and you're sick of like hearing this, you can like turn the sound effects volume down, and you know. Typewriter speed will be for the dialogue, which I'll show you in a bit. I made these checkboxes. I can't take credit for the text being so cool and fancy. I did use a text engine. I found a really good text engine. But I did make these checkboxes, and so I could like, disable typewriter if you're getting sick of like waiting for that on the dialogue. Or let's say you don't like it that like it auto focuses on whatever menu element. I made a little thing, so now I have to hold my modifier key, which I currently have set to control. So now I have to set control, or sorry, hold control to make it do this. If I let go of control, yeah, it won't. You can still click on things though. It's just that it's, sometimes that can get annoying depending. So yeah, and then there's a checkbox for whether it's directly from the keyboard or parsed through GameMaker. That's just technical stuff. And then one thing I kind of like is this was generally based on the input system I started with, but I added a lot to it. I've made these settings files, so like I can add a new file, and it will save all your current settings. So like let's say I say that, and now activated because switching to direct keyboard has to reset the controls. But let's say I call this, I don't know, C. Oh, I hit the thing where I gotta do that. Create new. And so now, like, if I click this, or this, or this, oh no, this one's the same as low volume. Low volume is like my favorite default, but so you got different settings files in case you have like siblings or something. And then one thing that's cool that I'm pretty proud of, because I made this pretty much completely myself as part of my menu system. If I have a list, so like this is really a list of files, I made this nice little scrolling system. So I'm just going to create, these are all going to be the same settings, but just like create a bunch of files. So it doesn't just work for files, but really any list of GUI elements that are representing a real list, I can have them like make this scrolling system. So like I could, you know, make a bunch of things, and it will, you know, be a scrollable list. I know that's not as nice as maybe having a scroll bar, but in GameMaker, unlike Unity, you have to make your GUI menus from scratch. So yeah, I'm pretty proud of it. Anyway, I'm gonna delete some of this garbage. That's just these example settings files. But yeah, and then I've programmed the game so that it will automatically load whatever settings you last used. Now it's not literally loading this file or whatever your last file was. It has a separate secret file that doesn't get displayed here, which just tracks whatever your last settings file was. So even if I never created my own settings file and I set it to something, the game will remember it. So yeah, I thought that was a good idea. Also, you'll notice this little debug output here. I actually keep like a list, which is basically acting like a stack for all of my exit buttons. So right now, if I press X, which is my exit button currently, it won't actually trigger this X. I mean, I could click on this X, but what it will do is currently this cancel button, which is coincidentally by the debug output. The debug output is always here, but this is showing how many cancels I have in sequence, not counting the original. So like if I have like this here, right, it's because I have this and then this. Well, let me close out of there. If I do this, it's because if I press X, then this will go to this. So pretty much it's a chain of exits managed by a list. And it could go deeper, right? Like when I start actually playing the game, you can open up this options menu from the pause menu. So yeah, I could have like 3 exits deep per se, like where I have to press X and then X and then X. Although I did program it so that you can just press P to get out of everything because it's a pause menu. But yeah, so I got a little file management going on, and I use the same system for the actual game files. Got some defaulting buttons. So let's start a new game file. Like I said, I just like to call it Z because that's kind of like my A button in this game by default. So I'm going to hit create new game. And yeah, that music's probably getting annoying. I'm going to actually turn this completely off. Oh, this is my pause menu, by the way. So by default I have it start with all of these characters for debug purposes. They're just generic like characters. I could explain the whole like plot and stuff, but I won't bore you with that for now. If you want to know, you could just text me and I'll explain the other mechanics and stuff of the game. But basically I have 4 characters defaulted in the party for testing purposes. You can click on them and it'll bring up their ability menu. Like I said, things are very plain and ugly right now. One of my goals over the summer is to make things actually look prettier and more descriptive and stuff. But anyway, this is this guy's like abilities. So you'll notice I'm reusing a lot of the same moves because testing and such. But like you have spells that cost mana, which I call it SP in this game. And I'm defaulting the guys with SP, so I guess I can't demo that, or with 0 SP. But I also have this is I need to label these, but this is your spells that use charges instead of mana. So like here, it's kind of like an item that's not an item, right? It's just you have spell charges that can be refreshed when you rest. I haven't actually implemented the resting system, but that should be pretty easy, right? It's just like some NPC that I talk to or something that resets all of these back to their maximum amounts. But so like basically like if I use heal here, since this is a spell that goes off of charges, let's say I click like this. Oh, I can only pick one person for the spell, so and then it heals him 3 points. He was already at maximum health, so it didn't really do jack shit to him, but it would have healed him. Let's see. Some things obviously will not work in pause mode, like trying to retreat, and actually most of these won't, but I just made it, made sure that there are some spells you can use from the menu. So like let me go through the main lists, even though these are, a lot of these should probably have mana costs and stuff, but I put every ability categorized also as like a normal ability, just for testing purposes. So like, um, let's see, let's go summon. I could show you how to summon a new guy, but that's still being debugged, so I'm not gonna work on that or show you that. Skipping turn is for obviously a debug thing for testing battles and stuff. Let's see. Oh, here's one. Cure. So like if a guy had a status condition, that's what they would be listed here. I could like click a guy and do that, but there's nothing to remove. Anyway, oh, I could swap guys. That's something that's useful in battle and here. So like the order, one of the main aspects of my game's RPG combat is the order matters for your characters. So like if I want to put ally 3 as the second spot or the first spot, I can like swap them. And then this had to refresh because now it's, or actually it had to like make sure all of the spells are currently updated and stuff. Actually, I should look at that again. Does that look okay? Yeah, I guess it does. I have key items listed very plainly here. Eventually I should spruce this up too. So yeah, those are abilities. And these nice little scroll lists are populating like lists of different ability categories. So pretty much every character object, well really a character is associated with a stat sheet object, kind of like a D&D sheet. And so like they have their abilities, spells, um, charge spells, these are mana spells, these are items. So like if I expend these, I think everything's set to be a potion right now, but yeah, if I expend them, then they go down or just fully disappear because they're actual true items. Whereas like if I do this, because it's a spell that you actually know, it'll just go down to 0. So yeah, I'll exit out of this. So anyway, oh, I should turn off these debug walls. Those are just showing the hitboxes on walls and such. But I can talk to people, so I'm gonna go talk to this guy. You can kind of tell there's the typewriter effect. It's really obvious when you have like a long thing of text. I need to give a background for these little portrait thingies. But anyway, so this is like the next page button, pretty much. This is just a default second page for this guy. But yeah, so this guy is kind of like your Professor Oak of sorts, although he's kind of an asshole as far as how I've written him as an NPC. So normally this would auto trigger, kind of like the Professor Oak thing from Pokemon, but I'm going to go ahead and talk to him. So yeah, he's going to tell everyone to line up, ask you what your name is. And like I said, you can just use the keyboard instead of having to use the mouse. I can also just press this again, either click it or in that case I press the Z because when something's darkened, it's menu selected. So it's like the target of the GUI menu at the moment. But when I press this while it's typewritering, for lack of a better word, it will just complete the text. Not completely my own code, like that system comes from somebody else, but I did have to